The second time he broke off, and Skippy was able to run away for a little bit.
And then she just went back and
she just started chasing after him. And by that time, you had 4 or 5 adults out there just screaming bloody murder, and I'm going after the dog. I don't realize that I don't have any wind left, but the adrenaline, I'm just going after the dogs. And then all of a sudden, a big puddle of blood that was inside of him dropped down to his chest.
It was like a...
And that's when the vets knew that Skippy was in trouble. Welcome back to the RV Odd Couple. My name is John.
And I'm Mercedes, and it's a tough day here at Thunder Canyon.
It's a really sad day here at Thunder Canyon. We became really close friends with a couple, and their pit bull attacked Skippy. And it was pretty traumatic.
It's just messed up.
And they just left today. So we just kind of want to share that story with you, what happened. Owning a campground is hard, man.
Some behind the scenes things that you wouldn't think about as a camper.
You just wouldn't think about. Mercedes and I full-timed RV for 3 years, campgrounds all over the country. And we were some of the people that complained about rules at campgrounds.
About the hall pass monitors in the campgrounds.
You know, big sheets of paper of rules and stuff, but there's a good reason for every rule out there. And running a campground the way it has to make sure it's a secure, safe environment for everybody that's there.
Yep. I'll start the story and you chime in. So when we get packages here at the campground, they get delivered to the house. And we had some packages for our friends. And so I grabbed them and went to their RV to deliver them. And as I'm walking, Skippy's loose, and I tell him go back to the house, and I bring this package over. And out comes my friend, frankly, like, our employee, our friend, my right hand, very important person to me.
Very close couple.
And she comes out to help me with these boxes, and right past her, shoom, her dog runs out.
Pitbull.
And the dog just immediately locks up, and you know how strong pit bulls are. Our dogs collide, and this dog grabbed Skippy by the neck and wouldn't let go. And at that point, my friend's screaming, I'm screaming, we're trying to like get the dog to let go, but we don't want to put our hands in the way of the dog's teeth, obviously.
Never get between a dog fight.
So nothing we're doing does anything. I mean, this dog is locked on, and we're screaming bloody murder. And it's like, I've never felt so helpless and so powerless before. Like, I had no tools to fix this, and I was about to see my dog die.
Yeah, I'm in the house and I hear just chaos, complete chaos. Thunder Canyon's a pretty peaceful and quiet place.
Yeah.
And so suddenly out of nowhere I hear barking and screaming and yelling, and immediately I know something's wrong. So I ran into the bedroom, grabbed my firearm, and I shot out the front door so fast that I didn't have shoes on. Now, Mercedes and Jenny and the 2 dogs were about 150 yards from where I needed to get. And so when I get out the door and I saw the best I could the fight going on, I felt just as powerless as Mercedes felt. And so I let off a warning shot, thinking that maybe this loud noise would get the 2 dogs to break apart.
It does nothing.
It did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. Again, I'm 150 yards away. I am running as fast as I can in bare feet against gravel and roads and pavement and sticks. But at this point, you know what happens? Adrenaline kicks in, and you ignore all that. So I'm running full speed. I let off a warning shot, hoping that the dogs will break up. And it didn't. It did nothing.
And so you get there. I didn't know you didn't have shoes. And he has the firearm in his hand, and he gets really close to this dog fight. Like, the dogs are 2 feet in front of him, and he points the firearm to the pit bull, and I just see my friend go like this, and I look, and it's just like at that moment, it was just, I mean, it was already traumatic, but I just knew it was just gonna get even worse.
So when I was heading that way and I let off the warning shot, my gun jammed. And as I'm running, I'm trying to unjam the gun. Again, I'm running full speed because you guys know when there's an emergency, you just can't get there fast enough. And I'm 3/4 of the way there, and I'm realizing, oh my God, I'm 56 years old and I'm running out of gas. Am I gonna have enough strength to finish this, to help break this fight up? And by the time I got there, I hit the dog with the gun a couple of times. Everybody was screaming, complete chaos. And that's when I actually took the gun. I thought it had finally loaded when I had gotten over there. I pointed it just under the dog's shoulder where the heart is, and I pulled the trigger, and it misfired again. And at that point, that helplessness that you said you felt, I felt. I didn't know if there was anything I could do. And this dog was ripping our dog apart. Skippy was just screaming bloody murder.
Just complete whining.
Thank God he did not go down. He stayed on his feet the whole time. So at that point, completely helpless, the gun misfires.
It's like, hit him with the gun,
I've got the gun, and I just start. I mean, I went into the fight, which is something you should never do. Because
don't do what we did.
Well,
don't do this.
I'll do it again. I mean, I'm trying to save my dog's life, and I'm scared. I don't know where Sage is at this point. I remember she was at the house when I took off, but I know she's not out there with us. So I start taking the gun, and I start hitting this. I hit that dog as hard as I could in the skull, and it was hardly even making a dent.
He was going full 360 like an iron worker, like hitting like a blacksmith.
Right, and I'm already out of breath. But again, the adrenaline's kicking in, and I'm just trying to get this dog off my dog. And then every now and then I'd catch him in the right spot, right behind the ear and the skull, and he'd let go. But then all of a sudden, I would think it was over. She'd come right back in on Skippy and grab on again and start ripping him apart again. I mean, it was horrible. Guys, this went on for about 4 or 5 minutes. Our dog was getting tore apart. And I must have hit that thing in the head with a gun at least a dozen times.
He pistol whipped the dog. There was something very surreal about seeing your husband, like, it was very surreal seeing him protect our family like that. Because we've had Skippy since he was a little puppy.
He's 11 years old.
He's our family, and there was something surreal, but at the same time, I am so grateful. I feel inadequate in some ways because I couldn't do anything, but like, it was pure survival. It was pure adrenaline. I have never seen the full rotation, and then he'd like do a couple and she'd detach, and we thought it was over, and then she'd come right back, and I'm being dumb, like trying to step in the way, or and then our dog, like when he could get up, would like try to get up and go, and we're like, run, but he could barely because he
was beaten up so bad. And I actually hit that thing a couple dozen times. The dog, the pit bull, had broken off Skippy. I broke him off 3 separate times. The first time he only went back about 2-3 feet when I hit him as hard as I could, and then he went right back onto Skippy again. The second time he broke off, and Skippy was able to run away for a little bit.
And then she just went back
and she just started chasing after him. And by that time, you had 4 or 5 adults out there just screaming bloody murder, and I'm going after the dog. I don't realize that I don't have any wind left, but the adrenaline, I'm just going after the dog, screaming bloody murder. He got on Skip one more time, and that's when I was just about out of gas, but I gave it everything I possibly could. I heard everybody screaming, "Run, Skippy, run," because Skippy had finally broke away, and he was running.
He had like 10 yards of space.
He was running for the house, and
hobbling.
And then for some reason, this dog just kind of stopped. It chased Skippy out of our range, probably about 100 yards away, and then Skippy and him went face to face again, but
something happened.
It was terrifying. Something happened, and I think it was God.
Well, and the only reason, if she had continued, then we had a new problem because now we're far away.
Well, we're far away, and I'm out of gas.
Yeah.
I mean, I was screaming bloody murder for God to help us with this. I think that's what ultimately stopped the fight. Long story short, we get Skippy into the house.
And at first, we didn't know how bad the damage was.
Yeah, we were like, wow, it doesn't look too bad. It doesn't look too bad.
But then I see the blood.
Right, and he's got some big fang marks in his side. So I threw Skippy in the truck, and Mercedes started making phone calls to all the local vets. They're all booked up.
They're far away, and the closest ones, the vets are out of town, so he has to travel to the
Fort
city.
Payne, yeah. So it was about a 35-minute trip, and I'm patting Skip as he go, and he was just sitting in the truck, just crying and shaking. He's covered in blood. There was blood all over the back seat of my truck, and we get to Fort Payne. I bring him in, and the veterinarian was assessing the damage, and she said, "How did you stop the fight?" The veterinarian said, "What was the dog that attacked Skippy?"
What kind of dog? Yeah.
And I said, "It was a pit bull." And she said, "How did you stop it?" And I said, I had a firearm in my hand and I was hitting it in the head. She said, why didn't you shoot it? And I said, I tried, but the gun jammed up on me and I could not do anything else but hit that dog as hard as I could. Hard as I can.
She didn't turn on you.
And it's amazing that she didn't, but she didn't. And so the veterinarian was blown away that I was able, I guess with pit bulls, once they attack, it's very hard to shut them off. Even the owners can't get them to stop. When they go in attack mode, they go in attack mode.
Well, they're solid muscle and they're bred for certain DNA instincts.
Well, there's tons of pounds of pressure in their...
What did
so
that say?
anyways, we were hoping, I think he said 5,500 pounds of pressure on the bite.
Crazy.
And it's next to impossible to get the dog to release, but for some reason I hit it hard enough where it did release.
The right spot.
And the right spot behind the skull, and right behind the skull it was soft. I was hitting it anywhere I could, seeing what was going to be effective. Again, I hit him 2 dozen times. He just wouldn't stop. And then when he did break away, he'd come right back at Skippy, and he just wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't end.
There was tunnel vision.
So we're at the vet, and the vet starts taking a look at Skippy, and one of the vet technicians started to actually clean the wounds up and shave away the hair to take a look at it. And then all of a sudden, a big puddle of blood that was inside of him dropped down to his chest.
It was like
And that's when the vets knew that Skippy was in a bit of trouble. So there was only some fang marks on his skin, but the dog, it had gone on for so long that it ripped Skippy's muscle all up. It just tore his muscle and his meat all up, and his whole shoulder and his ribs. So they needed to do surgery on Skippy. They did some surgery that night.
He had internal bleeding.
He had internal bleeding that they had to stop.
Muscles ripped.
And then the hardest part was that we had to leave Skippy there for the night.
And we didn't know how he was.
And we didn't know how long it was going to be. And she said, it's probably going to be surgery tonight, surgery again tomorrow, and then hopefully if everything goes well, you guys will have him back on Friday. Now, this is Wednesday night that this is happening. And so I called Mercedes. I let her know what was going on. I came home. And now what's happened is suddenly
it's like a wall.
I said the dog had to leave. I never said they had to leave. Not once. I said, your dog has to go. And they made the decision the next day that they were leaving, that they could not stay here with us. And at that point, again, there was a lot of tension and it's like their kid beat the heck out of our kid, you know? And so there was just a lot of stress and pain, and we didn't know how to treat each other that night.
Well, I went and talked to them. When you sent that text that the dog has to go, they're like, well, you know, can we kennel her in the RV for a couple days? And it's like, no. And
I asked the vet, I said, you know, is there any way she said that the pit bull is the most unpredictable dog there is, and that when a pit bull attacks, there's no off button. Nothing can stop that usually until they get killed. And so the fact that I broke the dog off and got Skippy away is a miracle. So I know God was watching out for us.
Yeah.
I also believe that God jammed that gun up, because looking back at it now, I'm glad the firearm jammed, because
she would have seen her dog.
She would have saw her dog right in front of her. And as a matter of fact, later that day, she said that she would have shot her dog if she had a gun. Well, it would have been horrible. But of course, I'm going to save Skippy's life, and Skippy was not the aggressor. He was trying to get away, and it wouldn't let him get away.
Yeah. Well, and the reason we bring this up is twofold. RVing with dogs is tricky. It's kind of hard on dogs to have a lot of changes, a lot of different scents, to not have a semblance of their own territory. But then when you're stationary for a while, depending on the breed and so forth, dogs can get very territorial. And it's a lot to ask of a dog to like move them around every couple days or every couple weeks. Typically in this situation, you call the police, you call the pound, tickets are issued.
We did none of that.
And we're trying to preserve this relationship, but also be stewards of the squad. Had this been a child, kids, when they see fights like this, they get involved and try to help their dog. And
Sage had a sandbox that was about 30 yards from where their rig was, and I never ever imagined that Sage was any type of danger. And along our travels, we've seen different rules in different places. Typically, what do they call the breed?
Well, no aggressive breeds.
No aggressive breeds.
No bully breeds. And no dogs over 30 pounds.
Yeah, so we've seen those wherever we travel.
And now we understand why.
I think the saddest part about all of this is we never imagined we would lose a friend over our dog getting almost killed.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that's hard. And I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah.
Had it been Skippy that almost killed another dog, I would immediately have kenneled Skippy and got him off the premises. Now, with that said, I do understand how much they love their dog, because we couldn't get rid of Skippy and stay in a place, because Skippy's our family member.
Yeah.
And so we completely understand that.
Yeah.
But still, I certainly wouldn't get angry at the person, and that's what's happened.
I guess they really thought they could just kennel their dog in their RV. That's not acceptable. As soon as something like this happens, you cannot have that animal on the premises. We didn't want to be hall pass monitors when it came to rules of the campground, but now we're going to have boatloads of rules, and not just against aggressive breeds, but even aggressive dogs. I don't care if it's a kind breed, but the dog's mean, they got to go.
It still means nothing. So our whole policy on aggressive breeds, there's going to be none at Thunder Canyon, period. We never, ever want to go through that again. And our fiduciary responsibility, we're stewards of this campground. And we are responsible not only for our own safety, but the safety of every person that comes into this park.
Every soul on this park is on our shoulders.
Is on us. And everybody here helped them pack up. It was a horrible, sad situation.
It was a lose-lose.
And these people are truly like family to us. We have been with them now at Thunder Canyon for almost 3 months. We break bread with them 2 or 3 days a week. We love them. They love Sage, which has been really hard, because Sage has been crying a lot once she knew Skippy wasn't coming home.
And then she's crying because now she misses them.
Now she misses them, so it's a lose-lose, you know? And then I walked the 150 yards back trying to catch my breath. I was buckled over. I could hardly breathe. For 2 days, I have not been able to walk since, because I ran so fast. So the price has been high. So what's the prognosis? We picked Skippy up on Friday. He had 2 surgeries. He's got a drain in him.
He's got one more surgery left.
He's got a ton of stitches inside him and on his muscle and in his skin. He's got 1 more surgery left to remove that drain. And Skippy may not ever be able to run quite as hard as he used to run. And Skippy's a runner. He loves running.
He loves running.
You know, and it's just so sad that this whole thing is happening. And it looks like it's cost us not only a damaged dog, but our friendship.
Yeah. The reason we bring this up is twofold. If you go camping and you see an aggressive breed, unfortunately, you really can't rely on the owner to say whether or not the dog is safe or not, because, you know, like you look at your kid's artwork and you say it's pretty. It's kind of one of those things that, like, oh, this dog wouldn't hurt a fly, but this is the second time this dog has bit another dog.
And remember, they didn't tell us this had been the second time the dog has bitten another dog. Had we known that, this would have been an issue a long time ago.
Yeah. I don't care how much you think that your pit bull's different. It's a pit bull. Period, end of story. And I know I'm going to get flack for that.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of hate, as we usually do. You know, I've heard the argument of, you know, my dog, it's not the dog, it's the owner.
Yeah.
Well, we knew these owners really good, and they're good people. But you're bred the way you're bred.
Yeah, your DNA is your DNA.
Exactly. And I've known of 3 pit bull attacks in my life. I had a pit bull attack me when I was in my mid-20s. And then I also had a neighbor, a 6-year-old boy, that was mauled by his own pit bull. And this pit bull grew up with this kid, and it almost ripped his face off. So this was not a personal attack on them. And hopefully things will work out for them.
But I also feel like this is a benefit to you guys, because if you have an aggressive breed, sorry, kennel them for the weekend, but it's dangerous. The other dogs there might trip your dog up. And
I'm sorry, guys, but if you see a pit bull, watch your back, no matter what the owner says. And they don't have an off button. So be careful out there. Keep your dogs leashed. Respect your neighbors. And we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah.